Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Midweek Devotional. We're so glad that you've joined us today. For those of you who don't know, every week we do these Midweek Devotionals. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joseph LaBeouf, and I'm the Youth Director here at University United Methodist Church. If this is your first time joining us, we're so glad that you've decided to join us today. And if you're a returning regular, we're so glad that you joined us back for this weekly practice that we have currently. And so for those of you who don't know what a midweek devotional is, basically we centered around what's going on in the life of the church, the teachings of the church, and currently we're in a series called Peacemakers, where we're talking about different aspects of peace and what does it mean to be called to be a peacemaker. And so Reverend Katie's done a fabulous job talking about it for the past 2 weeks, in the sense of that, we all are called to be peacemakers in a sense, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. For those of you who have your Bible, I want to encourage you to get it out, open it up to Matthew chapter 10, verses 34 through 39 is what we're going to look at. And so for the sake of time, I'm not going to actually read it all the way through, but Matthew chapter 10, as you can kind of see if you're following along, the beginning of Matthew 10, Jesus is actually commissioning the disciples and giving them authority to do all kinds of things, to do signs and wonders, to cast out demons, as it is said. So Jesus is giving them the authority to go out and to do mission for Jesus and to give them the power to carry out the mission of God that he's called us to do. And then if you look through throughout the rest of the passage, you come to verse 34 and through 39, and Jesus here is saying some pretty intense things about bringing the sword and not bringing peace, all these things. And so Jesus here is talking about the cost of discipleship. And now I want to hold that thought and kind of talk about a story from my own life. So for 4 summers while I was in college, I worked at a Christian summer camp. After my first summer, I was really excited to go back for the second summer. But of course, I was getting a lot of doubts from my family. Asking me questions like, how much is it paying? Is there another, bigger adult job that you could get, basically? Because, common sense would say a summer camp job is not really a lot to prepare you, for the next semester or for other things that were needed. And so I went back and forth about going back, even though I had a very transformative first summer. I was questioning because my parents were kind of telling me not to do it. All these different things. Family was just encouraging me to be a little more realistic, right? And so the reason this relates is if you look in verse 34 through 39, you see Jesus talking about how it is actually going to divide amongst, families and households and split that up. And the piece that Jesus here is talking about is Jesus is telling the disciples that the cost of following him will not be easy. In fact, the cost of following Jesus will not be even peaceful in the sense of everything going right. Because at the time that the New Testament was written, people were being persecuted for their faith because Jesus' teachings were directly going against Roman authority, Roman government, and all of that. So as we see after Jesus is crucified, all the teaching of the disciples are then in danger as well. So Jesus is preparing them that this road ahead will not be easy. And in fact, so much so that Jesus is telling them here that in order to have peace, Jesus has to be first. And in fact, that's actually going to cause some not peace. Sometimes that's going to split up families in the sense of where are our priorities at? Is Jesus the top priority in that? And that can kind of cause some issues and some conflict there, right? So leading into that, I want us to kind of reflect, think about a time maybe where you had to choose Jesus or something else, to choose the way, the Christian lifestyle versus other things. How did you feel having to go through that internal conflict of choosing between your faith or something else? And how did you respond? And do you feel like you made a choice that ended up being worth the cost of it? And then I want you to think about a time maybe where there was conflict between you and even other Christians. Because sometimes we put our own politics or our own point of views on certain things above following Jesus. We will put our political view, we will put our view on economics, we'll put government, we'll put all these other things above the teachings of Jesus. And so Jesus here is encouraging us not to do that, but yet to keep him as priority. So think about a time maybe where there was conflict. How did that turn out? Was the stance in which the two people were taking worth the dissension and the division that was caused? And then reflect maybe how you could have handled that differently. And I would actually love to hear more about this in the chat down below on Facebook, to have conversation about it and what that looks like in our lives. I want to thank you so much for joining us here. And we look forward to seeing you same time, same place next week. Thanks.